Hey all, Kevin Douglas Berg. What was I saying about KDB? Our second part of NATO issues a dire warning to China over enabling Russia with their supplies of their war effort against Ukraine. Part of a series of I called "Let's Do It to It." Current news of what's going on, so you don't have to look through all the bullshit. Why are NATO countries criticizing China now? NATO's warning appears to reflect rising worry that Russia's resurgent military, helped by Chinese know how, has Ukraine on the back foot. Secretary of State Antony J. Blinken and NATO Security General Jens Stoltenberg told a news conference last month that China's backdoor support helped Mr. Putin keep his grinding war going. How is China likely to respond to NATO's warning? China has repeatedly rejected accusations from Washington and other Western governments that its trade with Russia amounts to backing Mr. Putin's war in Ukraine. It's brimming with prejudice, smears, and provocation. Lin Jian, a spokesman for the Chinese Foreign Ministry, said Thursday. He also warned of damage to Chinese relations with Europe, suggesting policymakers in Beijing may be especially worried that the NATO warning could augur more pressure from the European member states of NATO. Natalie Samban-Nazi, a senior research fellow at Chatham House in London and co-author of a recent study of Chinese-Russian ties, said she expected European countries to start sanctioning Chinese companies slowly while carefully weighing consequences and a potential backlash. NATO's warning, she said, tells China there'll be costs. Chinese companies may try to ward off these costs by pulling back, or at least for now, from some of their technology trade with Russia, said Mr. Liu, the expert in Taiwan. But in the longer term, he and other experts said China was unlikely to turn its back on Mr. Putin. After all, while NATO urged China to choke off critical technology exports to Russia, NATO also described China as a systematic threat to Western powers, which may only reinforce Mr. Xi's comment to Mr. Putin and his partner. If I were Xi Jinping, I would certainly not be tempted by the statement to throw Putin under the bus, said Sergei Radchenko, a professor at the Johns Hopkins School of Advanced International Studies who studies Chinese-Russian relations. Xi Jinping totally sees Russia as an important strategic player. About 70% of Russia's imports of machine tools and 90% of its microelectronics come from China, Mr. Blinken noted. That it's enabled Russia to keep the defense industrial base going, to keep the war machine going, to keep the war going, he said. China's technology components have become increasingly important for Russia forces as they learn new ways to jam and stymie Ukraine forces' drones and communications, said Alexander Gabuev, the director of Carnegie Russia Eurasia Center in Berlin. At the same time, I think China is also very interested in getting hold of Russian innovations and how Russians are doing it, Mr. Gabuev said. So, once again, I go back to, if you're a diplomatic pact and you want to keep peace, or you want to maintain some sort of peace, maybe NATO doesn't want to maintain peace anymore. Maybe I'm looking at the narrative as being the old NATO. Now the new NATO wants to constantly encroach and expand. Be that as it may, we're doing everything for Ukraine. How is it not hypocritical for us to advise China, who is a partner with Russia, don't do what we're doing with Ukraine, because America is part of NATO and NATO can do whatever it really wants. And I go back to, why push the boundaries even harsher on that situation in Ukraine and Russia and us in the proxy war in Poland and everyone else. Just something to ponder. I know I'm a little late with that. I'm going to look into that more. Definitely needs to be addressed and followed up on. So, and with that, how many minutes are we? We're 4:55. Okay. Let's do a quick prayer. We'll break it down. My name is Kevin Douglas Berg. This is what I say in blog. We always break it down. Pray for you, pray for me, pray for world peace, pray for those people coming and going, pray for those on the plane, train, automobile, pray for those that served, are serving, post-serving, fighting with PTSD. Pray for all the military, everybody in uniform, everybody, policemen, policewomen, anybody, first responders, firemen, firewomen, as well as people in and out of the hospital wanting a better day, all doctors. I pray for all those that are suffering and need mental, physical, emotional. They need less struggling, hopefully tomorrow than they have today, with their issues, psychological, whatever kind of problems they have, emotional and physical, as well as those who don't have necessities to live, like food, water, shelter, clothing. Hopefully tomorrow the world shows more compassion than it is today. Hopefully tomorrow the world shows more empathy than it is today. Pray for you and me, world peace. My name is Kevin Douglas Berg. This was What Was I Saying blog, KDB. Let's do it to it. Current news, so you guys don't have to look at everything. NATO warns China about enabling Russia in the Ukraine war. You guys are the best. My name is Kevin Berg. I'm here to evoke thought, move humanity forward. Kevin out. All right, so that's the end. Okay.